Bene's Bloody Bits.
Welcome to Bene's Bloody Bits. I'm Jason Bene. He's Malcolm Harvey. It's 100 degrees where I'm at. How about your weather?
It's about 50 here. It was 70 earlier. It's 50 now because it's in the evening. So thank God for the time difference, because you can swelt while I'm sitting here all cold like a cucumber.
Oh my! So, granted, there's the time change, and I'm daytime, you're nighttime. You're literally 50 degrees cooler than me right now.
Yeah, right now, yeah.
That's okay. So we're going to talk about the Star Wars series, and we're going to go in order of, episode 1 on. There could be some jumping back and forth because obviously the original trilogy came first, so there'll be a lot of reference points to those films. But let me take you back to, let's see, May 1999. I went to a midnight screening of The Phantom Menace. I tracked down a prequel shirt. I was totally open to the experience. It had been 16 years. 1983 was the last Star Wars film, which was Return of the Jedi. Here we are, it was 1999. And it was, to say it was a bummer of an experience is overstating the obvious. I left the theater pretty much like that wasn't a Star Wars film that I just watched. Not at all. It just, I won't go into the details yet. I just kind of want to give you my initial thoughts after seeing it, like one of the first people. When did you first see The Phantom Menace, and what were your initial kind of reactions?
For me, my dad came home one day from work and he had a blank VHS tape, right? Nothing written on it. And he said, "Here you go." And gave it to me and said, "You're going to love this. This is going to change your life." He'd never seen the movie, obviously, because he was probably thinking of the original ones. Yeah. And he told me to put it in. So I put it in, and I absolutely loved it as a kid because it was like the ultimate kids film for me. At the time I was like, wow, look at this. It's got the kid from Jingle All the Way, my favourite film of all time, right? Yeah, right? So there I am, I'm putting it on and I'm just enjoying it. And I'm like, this is incredible. And I watched it over and over again until the tape got destroyed in the player. But I remember having really fond memories of it and really loving it, thinking, you know what, it can't get better than this, because I'm going to tell you this quickly, right? The original trilogy, my family had got me, and I watched and I cried. I couldn't watch the original trilogy because Darth Vader's voice and face when he takes his mask off scared me so much that I couldn't watch those films for almost 20 years. It was like the worst horror movie I'd ever seen.
So James Earl Jones's voice really did a number on you, right?
It did. It did.
So your initial, you saw Phantom Menace at a young age, but you loved it. So you had never seen any of the other films before Phantom Menace?
I'd seen parts of the original trilogy, but it scared me so much because the way he was. But I kind of blanked out my mind and didn't really care much. All I thought about was Darth Vader and how absolutely terrifying he was when he took the helmet off. And years later, basically, that wasn't that terrifying at all. It was just a guy who looked old.
So as far as going back to Phantom Menace, I will discuss some of the things I liked first before I just start bashing on it. I do.
Is this from the new watch? Is this from the watch now?
Yeah, this is fresh. And
okay.
I mean, I've nothing really changed with my opinions. I mean, I always liked, though I feel like he wasn't given enough of a backstory, I did like Darth Maul. Can he compare to Darth Vader? No. But I do like that this is a younger Jedi, right? These are younger Jedis and Sith Lords. So that what they can do in fights is quite different. They're acrobatic, you're right? They're in their element. These are not aging Jedis like we saw in the original trilogy. So I do like that Lucas let these guys go crazy. I do feel I like the battle at the end with Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul. It is the only time where there's no trash talking, and I kind of miss that with the lightsaber fights, right? Because it kind of gives it that little bit of edge. But I feel like John Williams' score, Duel of the Fates, that whole scene is great.
The score's perfect in this film.
Right. I really do like the end. I've kind of always been a dogfight in space and lightsaber battle guy. I feel like that's always been the bread and butter of the series. That's what, you kind of work your way toward the end of the film. And that's that climax that really works. Qui-Gon Jinn as a character was kind of confusing to me. I don't think we needed him, to be honest with you. And also I'm going to reference back to the original films. Obi-Wan made it quite clear that Yoda was who trained him. So I think Lucas never went back and watched the original trilogy. He went off memory of what in his head that he had written. And
so he didn't read his Bible then, that he created himself?
No, Qui-Gon Jinn, I think that you don't need him. I think it should have just been Obi-Wan and Anakin, and somehow Obi-Wan's the one that finds him.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
I like Qui-Gon, but you're right. In a lot of ways, it feels like he's just there for the sake of it. I mean, you know, Obi-Wan is as well, really, in this movie, because even though he's like the apprentice, he's kind of off a little while where he's just walking around. I think that's the problem with this movie. A lot of it feels like a lot of walking around. And so, yeah, it kind of feels like they just wanted Qui-Gon to find Anakin, and then here you go, die and do this. But I do agree. I think it would have been better if it had just been Obi-Wan, because Qui-Gon would be an interesting character if he actually did stuff.
Well, the biggest cardinal sin of the film is it was explained that the Force is kind of like faith. We're talking like almost like religion. You don't see it.
Yeah.
It's not something you could taste, touch, or feel. It's kind of just around you. You can feel it, right?
Yeah.
And then for some reason, we get into midi-chlorians. And you can actually do like a blood test. And then Qui-Gon tests Anakin's blood, and the midi-chlorian count is higher than Yoda's.
It's off the roof, yeah.
That's a big mistake. That's a big blunder. That, to me, you basically negate what was explained about the Force to begin with. And because, look, when Qui-Gon finds Anakin, Anakin's like a Jesus Christ figure, because he asked the mother, who's the father? There was no father. Oh, it's like God, Mary, Jesus, right? It's like the Immaculate Conception, right? He's playing with those rules. So why introduce something where you could explain the Force? That was like the biggest, what the fuck of the film. Like, really? And I'm not trying to overanalyze it, but I'm just going off of what you've already established in the original trilogy, and now you're undermining it.
Well, the second biggest what the fuck moment is the grooming of Anakin by Padme, the princess. Constantly, every scene,
I am
like touching him. Ridiculous, you know? And the bits where she goes, "You saved us all, you're so good," and you're like, oh, you know, it just felt so bad considering when I was a kid, I was like, yay. Then that bit, I'm like, oh, she's grooming him. Look at her. What's interesting is there's Keira Knightley plays the body double bodyguard. We know when they switch over the outfits,
right? Because
which I thought was interesting.
They're trying to protect her from being, assassinated. So you have your
yeah. But the fact that it was Keira Knightley was interesting, considering she's quite a well-known actress now.
Right. I think she was more well-known than Natalie Portman was around this time. But I do like her casting. But so anyways, that to me did not sit well. The over-explaining of the Force. I thought the whole time on Tatooine was a snooze fest.
It was a snooze fest.
I mean, really, the movie doesn't even actually pick up until they get off it. I thought the pod race was George Lucas kind of stroking himself. I know he's a big race car fan, and I think that thing went on way too long and kind of anticlimactic. I just felt like that whole first 30 to 45 minutes was like...
But did you see the cameo in the crowd?
Well, I know that Warwick Davis was there.
Yeah, Warwick Davis was there. Yeah,
I know he was Wicket. He was the Ewok in Return of the Jedi.
Yep. Okay, you spotted him then.
Was there somebody else in the audience that I missed?
There probably is, but I didn't know. So I know it's Warwick Davis jumping up and down.
So you're giving us way too many characters, ones that we never heard of. You're explaining the Force in a way you shouldn't. I really feel like if you're going to do a prequel, we didn't need to see Anakin so young. I really feel like episode 2 should have been episode 1. Maybe he could have been a little bit older. I don't know if we needed to see him as a kid. I understand what Lucas was going for, because he wanted to talk about how Anakin got taken away from his family too young. But on Tatooine, he was a slave. So that, but I get it that, you want to get somebody who's not going to be like missing their mom, and you kind of want to start them, without any baggage. And unfortunately, you take him away from his mom, there's baggage, and the Jedi Council felt he was too old, which, my God, they must really start them young.
I think that was a little bit of sandbagging, considering they thought he'd be more bad for the Force than anything. Oh, Don French has a cameo as well. So does Jonathan Pryce.
So I felt like Anakin's too young. There's way too much time on Tatooine. Whew. Jar Jar Binks is the most useless
best character in the whole movie.
He's absolutely useless, does not add anything to the story. I just think this was Lucas like, okay, I have this technology now that I didn't have back in the 70s and 80s.
Which, by the way, hasn't aged well when you watch the movie now.
And you have to remember, yes, it's 1999 film, but it's also a couple $100 million too. It's not like it's some direct-to-video film. He doesn't add anything to the film. Absolutely takes more. He has more screen time than probably Anakin and Obi-Wan and a lot of Qui-Gon. And also, people argue with this film in particular, well, Lucas just made it for kids. Really? You're kind of insulting the intelligence of kids, because I grew up with the original films when I was a kid, and I understand them perfectly. You got this guy who is just, he's just a misfit. He's just comic relief. And I really don't want Star Wars to go down the road of like toilet humor. But when you got him stepping in poop, and then you got an animal like farting, and he's like, "Pee, you sir." It's almost like a parody, like a bad, like Mad TV, Saturday Night Live. If George Lucas hadn't directed this, I wonder if this would sit well with everyone. Because some people have been.
Not.
I mean, trust me, I defended this film for a couple of years after I saw it. Like, there's no such thing as a bad Star Wars film, and how could this be? But as I've gotten older and kind of gotten away from it and watched the newer films and TV series, I realized just how atrocious this film is and how it jumps all over the place. Just so you know, kind of like Alfred Hitchcock and his wife at the time, the brains behind a lot of the Star Wars, the original films, was George Lucas's wife. They got divorced sometime in between these two trilogies. She did not have anything to do with these prequels. And it kind of shows. And she actually saw Phantom Menace, and when she was done, she went to her car and cried. That's a story that's out there. It wouldn't surprise me. It's a rough film. Jar Jar cannot be undone. Even if you take him out, the film still has issues. I don't want to beat down Jake Lloyd too much, because I think that probably put the poor guy into
he was only in 8 movies
and pushed him out of the industry. But he
quit in 2001.
Yeah, and there are really good kid actors out there. I mean, just look, in 1999 we had The Sixth Sense, which had Haley Joel Osment, who was probably around the same age. What people need to remember is George Lucas wrote this film, and he is the Elon Musk of Star Wars. Means nothing gets greenlit without his approval. So if you want to, all this movie falls really on him as far as the casting, the special effects. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Ewan McGregor's a good casting. Natalie Portman, Samuel L. Jackson's good, but they don't have as big of roles in this film as, the Qui-Gon, the Jake Lloyd, Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks, you're crazy. You're crazy. I love him.
Malcolm, have you seen it in 4K?
I don't own it, but I watched it in 4K.
Was the 4K able to shine that turd into a
No. The 4K actually makes the animation look awful. So basically, when you're watching the 4K, it looks like you go from really great looking scenes to when there's animation in it, it looks like you're basically looking at a PS2 game in motion with people moving with it. It's really bad. Horrendous.
I mean, all that
But
stuff
still
with
gives it a bit of charm.
I mean, all the underwater stuff looks really bad, you know, when they're down there.
Yes,
and,
really bad.
The whole battle scene with the Gungans and the droids and stuff looks awful. And this is an interesting time in fandom because this was 1999, early 2000s, and that was the whole "Ain't It Cool" news was really popular. And if you went to the talkbacks in there, it was like, because you have to remember, The Matrix was released in '99, so was Phantom Menace, and then Fellowship of the Ring was 2001, and a lot of people were comparing those films, how they're saying Star Wars was something in the past. These films kind of were better.
Fellowship looks the best.
Do you have some agreement with that Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, I think if I had to say quality-wise in the thing, I would say it goes the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Matrix, and then I would say this when it comes to the CGI, because at least the Matrix uses it in a way that you do believe you're in a system. It's just supposed to take this more seriously.
And I don't mind, like, episode 1 has the politics of it, but there's some scenes in that Senate chamber that just go on and on. It's like the lack of action in the film, at least the first half. I mean, it just kind of bogs the story down.
Yeah, well, there's a connection with this film.
Marsha Lucas, that must have been his ex-wife, was in a documentary called Icons Unearthed, and she came off as bitter and dejected. Well, that's fine, you know, to each their own.
Don't blame her. Well, this film has a connection to the Italian movie, The Church.
Oh, the African-American actor. What's his name?
Hugh Crasher.
You're right.
He's in it.
Well, when I watched The Phantom Menace, I couldn't remember his name, but I had seen The Church before, and I was like, hey, that's the same guy. And yeah. And so the CGI.
He was also in Holby City with Patsy Kensit. They played lovers. So I guess it all comes round in circles.
So as an adult, you're more harsh on the film? I mean, what did you like?
I enjoyed it. Funny enough, I enjoyed it. I thought the 2 hours and 16 minutes flew by. But has it got problems? Yeah, it's got a lot of problems. It advertises grooming kids, right, when you're 16. That's disgusting. It's got the awful CGI now, but it's like almost horrendous to watch. It's got some really, really crazy moments in it, like when Darth Maul's chopped in half and falls down the, shaft thing. Poor Darth Maul, probably the best character in the whole movie, and he's gone by an apprentice.
Well, and also that whole battle, the lightsaber battle, they're doing all these crazy things, yet Obi-Wan's able to hang on for his life, flip up in the air, twirl over him, grab Qui-Gon's lightsaber, slice him in two, which probably took a good fire. I mean, I don't want to nitpick down to things, but, when you just had a battle scene where a lightsaber battle where people were, doing, eye-hand coordination.
I think the lightsaber, when it went to him, it was supposed to say, "You're the master now." And that's why he gets it. And then he basically chops him in half because he's the master, because obviously his teacher's dead, because I guess, But I get what you're saying, because, you're like, why is Darth Maul just scraping on the floor? Why doesn't he just go?
And you know what? Don't count your chickens before they hatch. You might have just wanted to push him down there with the Force, right? And let's see. Yeah. I was curious what Darth thought. Phantom Menace has certainly grown on me over the years, though I never have nerd rage and hated it. The problem is in the sequel trilogy 2 months down the line, I felt like maybe I had grown up and that butterfly feeling in my stomach was gone because I had gotten older. But no, when I watched The Force Awakens, it was still there. So I realized it wasn't a matter of me growing up and being cynical. It was just that film didn't work for me. It's just, there's just times where, Jake Lloyd's bad acting.
It's amazing. What I like about Jake Lloyd is in this, he's basically playing the same characters he played in Jamie in Jingle All the Way. Because it's like, there's a bit in Jingle All the Way where he goes, but Dad, you don't care about me. And in Star Wars, it's like, her mum come too, and you're like, he's playing the same character, and that makes it so epic.
I did like that he was on, in Tatooine inside of his home. He was working on C-3PO.
Yeah, I like that he technically created C-3PO.
I did like that he's working on the inner workings of him, and they have this relationship, and they never really cross paths again. But I did appreciate that. Look, I'll never like the Phantom Menace, and it's not because I'm OG and I grew up with the original trilogy and nothing can hold a candle to them, because you'll actually learn when we get to episode 7, 8, and 9 that I actually don't think it's the better trilogy of the because we have prequel trilogy, we have original trilogy, we have sequel trilogy, we have Solo and Rogue One kind of planted in between those ones. Those movies aren't perfect either, but I just felt like the story was really weak. I felt like Lucas had put
felt like was a lot of filler.
I felt like it was special effects over story.
Yeah.
And there's and at the beginning of the film where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are sitting down and these droids come up and they do this thing that I've never seen before and it's never repeated again. They run really fast, like bats out of hell, right? Like some force run.
Yeah.
And they go, poof, and they shoot down this hallway. And I'm like, why couldn't have Obi-Wan done that to save Qui-Gon when he was trapped in between those panels?
Yeah, that's a good point,
right,
actually.
That he got separated.
Also, the other thing.
I won't forget the 2 Ewok films. Those two.
Also, the other thing is the enemies in this, those ones that pop up and they're like this with the bit, they're droids like that. They stole that from Abe's Odyssey, the video game.
What do you think about I mean, we know that who Palpatine is, and he's the Emperor, and do you feel like that's it's kind of anticlimactic? We know what he's doing. We're just kind of seeing behind the scenes of how he's changing the political landscape and getting things to his side. Did you enjoy that?
I think you're supposed to get this. I think you're supposed to get this massive thing. We're like, oh, look, he's standing there with him, but he's doing it. But in reality, you're just like, yeah, we know. Like when they're like, who's the master and who's the apprentice? Well, I will say this. I think Darth Maul, because he's technically one and done in this, technically, even though he's in other stuff a bit.
Yeah, he's in Solo.
I do think they should have kept him in for all 3 of these prequel ones, because he's got such a great look. In many ways, he feels like he could have rivaled Darth Vader a little bit, if you had him in like the 3 movies kind of thing. But it wasn't his place. He was the apprentice and was supposed to be there until Anakin comes along. So
let me ask you this: who would you have preferred in all 3 films, Darth Maul or Count Dooku, if you can choose one?
Darth Maul.
You think he's a better villain than Christopher Lee was as Count Dooku?
I love Christopher Lee, don't get me wrong, but Darth Maul just is fascinating to me.
So you would have liked a bigger story for him, maybe more screen time, not gotten killed?
I would like to if he'd have killed, and then basically Obi-Wan needed to get that revenge in the other ones, maybe later when he was older. And maybe with Anakin seeing it and, it just going more like this is how hurting the dark side more of Anakin, because he saw Obi-Wan also commit a heinous thing because he needed revenge for what happened to Qui-Gon.
Right, to Qui-Gon. So when you originally saw the film, you thought Phantom Menace was great, but now you still think it's still good for you? Still works the action good?
Well, when I watched it originally, I loved it. When I watched it now, I thought it was still fun, but I felt like there was a lot of tediousness in it with like you said, on the Tatooine bit. I felt like the race went a bit too quick, went too slow, sorry. And I felt like a majority of it was filler, like a filler movie with too much talking and too much of the same kind of battle thing going over and over again. And then the fact that Anakin blows up that place in space. I was like, why did they do that? It's like the exact same thing as it felt a bit too
Well, George Lucas has said in the Star Wars films, there will be themes that repeat themselves. And I think Anakin blowing up that space station is kind of like Luke destroying the Death Star.
It is.
Even lightsaber battles. I think that's done purposely. I don't think that's
called laziness. That's called laziness. That's called being a director and a creator who can't mix it up and create new things. And this is why he gave up on the Star Wars people when he sold up, because he had no original ideas.
Do you think, I understand, like, he was very happy where technology, of course, because Industrial Light and Magic is his company, he was excited to make these prequels. And you felt like a lot of this, I guess we should have saw coming, because he kept fucking around with the original trilogy and adding stuff. And, like at the end of Return of the Jedi, they replaced the actor with Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we doing? It's like, and also like where Darth Vader throws, the Emperor over down into the, they got rid of the no. There's like, so I guess we could have saw the prequels coming, that he was going to rely heavily on special effects, maybe more so than he should have. A lot of stuff is green screen.
Yeah.
And regardless of the genre, I think that doesn't work for a lot of films, whether we're talking Marvel, DC, horror films, whatever. It kind of takes you out of it. And look, you can balance the two. Like Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, there's a lot of CGI, but there's a lot of traditional Muppets, puppets, effects, creatures. You can do both. And I think Lucas was like, it's all or nothing. And there's a video out there. The producer of Phantom Menace is Rick McCallum. And Lucas sends a bunch of big higher up people like in a room and plays the Phantom Menace for them. And Rick McCallum's just like his face speaks 1,000 words. He's like, what is this piece of shit that I'm watching? I mean, it's actually amazing to watch. You can fill in the blanks of what he's thinking. Like, oh my God, we got to go sell this thing. And look, Phantom Menace ended up making about $430 million in the United States. But money doesn't equal quality to me. I think it's overrated. Like I know right now Wolverine and Deadpool is making a ton of money. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it.
I watched it.
People think that money equals, that means it's the best. If you sell the most albums or you have the most downloads, that you're the best musician ever. And I really think box office is overrated to quality. What do you think?
I'm going to say this, as someone who's watched Deadpool and Wolverine, I can tell you people will go and watch the most brain-numbing, boring piece of crap. But as so much in the movie that ruins it and has no real time whatsoever, right? And relies too much, well, that one does, relies too much on this fourth wall breaking, which basically, the character Deadpool does, but not to this extent, which you'll see when you watch it. But what I'm saying is I feel like we live in a world now where it's too easy to use CGI, too easy to not give a proper film, and people will go and watch it because it's a part of a franchise. It's a part of this. This is my problem with franchises anyway, right? I feel like, look at the film with Star Wars. When this came out, people were lining up to go and see it because they loved the original trilogy, to the point that they were queuing for, days beforehand, so they didn't miss out on tickets. And they watched it, and depending on who you were, you loved it, or you were obsessed with it, trying to force it down anybody else's throat, And I think that's the problem with any fandom. I think you got to think about things. This is why cinema technically has so many issues now when it comes to film, because too many people don't want original stories. They want the same old crap over and over again shoved into their gullet because they want to be constantly hand-fed. They don't want to think. They don't want to have real entertainment. This is why I always say I want more original stories, and people will argue and say there are original stories. Yeah, there are, but we don't get to see them so much because they're so forced.
There's a fantastic story during the Clone Wars that covers Maul's survival in Homeworld. Sometimes the expanded universe content outside the films adds a great deal to
That's
mythos.
true.
I agree. I know that Darth Maul shows up briefly in Solo. I wish he could have had more.
It's also in the animated series.
That is something I probably need to do more of. Most people say the animated stuff and the books are better than the films, which is usually correct. I think though with this film, there was a lot of ego. You can go back and watch a lot of the behind the scenes with Lucas, and he just he walked around like his shit didn't stink. And I remember when Peter Jackson did, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, Return of the King, at the time, Lucas said visual effects wise, they cannot do those movies without ILM. And little did he know that, well, he's got Weta. And let's be honest, the effects in the Lord of the Rings trilogy are much better than the prequel trilogy. I just think there was a lot of ego with Lucas. And I don't think it was his intention to direct all three prequels. I really felt like he wanted to do like the original trilogy. He was going to direct Phantom Menace. It was going to get well received amongst fans and critics and make its money, which it did. And he was going to pass the baton to somebody else for the next two. And I felt like he had no choice in his mind to kind of shut people up by making the next two. I really don't think he wanted to do.
Well, that's the problem. When you're a talented director up there, put like Martin Scorsese, you've got to take it on yourself because someone else will ruin it.
Would you have preferred Anakin to be older? Maybe episode 2? Be like a teenager?
I'd have preferred it if he'd have been a baby. To be honest, to start off with. Like they find the baby at the end kind of thing or something. But yeah, I've got problems with Hayden Christensen as well as thingies. So, it depends on how you are. I don't think this movie's that bad. I really don't. I don't think Jar Jar Binks is that bad either.
Okay,
I think Paul.
He's okay. So you were joking about you want to see Anakin as a baby. What about the scene where Yoda's training all the little kids and they're literally a foot away from each other with lightsabers? There's like 8 of them. Like they're gonna just cut each other, right? They're like so close to each other. It's just
in Roger Coy, if there was a comedy version of it made, they'd all be chopping each other's heads off, and you'd be like, "Oh no!"
It is a comedy version. The movie is slapstick for most of it. Jar Jar is absolute comic relief.
He's amazing.
You're gonna be like the comic book story guy in The Simpsons, like where he's got the Jar Jar. He goes to bed with this Jar Jar doll, like nobody loves you, but I do, Jar Jar, and go to sleep.
I had a Jar Jar Binks money box when I was a kid.
When episode 1 came out, I was working at Suncoast Motion Picture Company, and we had a lot of when that movie came out, we had posters, action figures. I mean, a lot of it didn't move, not just Jar Jar, but in general, a lot of it didn't move. But man,
what discounted then?
The merchandising was kind of crazy, and I did pick up a few things. And look, I think I liked the film a little bit more than I did then, but I will not deny that I was extremely disappointed. I just felt like in the pit of my stomach, I just wanted that emotional impact that I wasn't getting. And I felt like when Qui-Gon got killed, I wasn't sad. I should have been sad, but I wasn't. I just felt like there's too many characters and there's too much going on to focus on, like the core group of people. But is it the worst film ever made?
I felt that way when Han Solo died. I was like emotionless. I was just like, oh, there's an old man. Yeah.
He wasn't gonna die anyways.
Yeah.
So do you own Phantom Menace? You have it on 4K Blu-ray? What do you have?
No, I don't own any of the 4Ks.
I know there.
I want them.
There's nothing wrong with streaming, folks. All the Star Wars films are on Disney Plus. There's nothing wrong with streaming. Physical media. Hey, I'm a physical media guy. So is Malcolm. But let me ask you this: do you think we'll ever see the original cuts, the original trilogy released, or does George Lucas have to pass away, Or do you think when he sold Lucasfilm to Disney that he kind of put somewhere that, look, I disown those films. You're going to give them a special edition, or you're not going to give them anything at all?
He must have done, because otherwise they would have been released, because that would have been like a big sales thing. People would have rushed out and bought them all. They would have sold out constantly for a long time if that had happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sold everything but kept those.
Yeah, I think that something happened, because I felt before Force Awakens came out that they would have put the original theatrical cuts back in theaters leading up to it, right? Because Jedi goes into Force Awakens, even though there's a 30-year gap in the storyline. You felt like they would have taken advantage of that.
I still think that people still hold on to the VHSs and stuff because it's the original ones.
I believe the Laserdisc and VHS is the last time you can get the theatrical cuts. I haven't seen those films.
They were on DVD as well, weren't they? Weren't they on early DVD before they got deleted?
I could be wrong. I want to say the DVDs were some sort of special edition, because DVD didn't really start till the late 90s, and he had already tinkered with the films. And I think that
Darth Sidious,
Darth Sidious, if you're still out there, let us know. The DVD cuts, I want to say they're special editions, but
because they released two versions. There's the ones that were sold originally but went out of print, and then they re-released them again.
So this year was the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace, and they put it back in theaters. You didn't go see it?
Nope.
No.
I didn't see it over there. I didn't see it in the thing over there at all.
Oh,
no announcements or anything.
Okay, so it didn't show up in theaters out there.
I mean, it might have done, but it might have been like in London or something like that, not, like in the local cinema.
I know there was a 3D version that was out there for a while too. I just 3D conversion. I mean, I like 3D when it's shot that way, but not the conversion. It doesn't look correct.
Just a bit of information, guys. If you want to go and see a good 3D film, go and see Captain America, because Hayley Atwell's bumbers bounce when she gets on the screen.
Wait, Captain America? Who's Bombas? La Bamba? What are La Bambas?
Bombers, bombers,
Okay.
bombers. Hayley Atwell, who plays Agent Carter. When she walks on the screen, they bounce in the 3D.
There's some katas. We got to get that Patreon started so we can talk about other things. So so obviously I'm not going to ever be a fan of Phantom Menace. You loved it as a kid. You still think it's still a good film.
It's all right.
The things that bother me don't seem to bother you, and that's cool. Malcolm and I did not discuss, and we're not going to talk about beforehand whether we like these films or not. We're just kind of wait till we get on video. I actually thought you were going to come to the dark side with me and not like it as much, but that's good. We're not always going to agree, but it's good that you actually liked it more than I did, because it gives two different
I assure you, there are ones I despise. So
okay, here we go. The theatrical cuts are available on DVD as a bonus disc, but those came out maybe 15 years ago. Oh, so they were available.
The reason I know that is because I've watched people pick them up at garage sales and say these go for a mint. In America.
Crazy. So we're going to try to do these, spread them out maybe once a month. We're in August, so sometime in September we will return with 2002's Attack of the Clones.
Ooh.
That's without saying too much, I saw pretty much. Here's the ironic thing: I saw every Star Wars film in theaters except for A New Hope. I don't know why. For some reason, in '77, my brothers went to like a midnight screening, and I didn't get to go. I understand I was really young and it was midnight, but for whatever reason, I didn't follow up. And I don't know, the next day or 2 days later, I could have went to a matinee or something. So I didn't catch that one till cable. But I've seen all the other ones in theaters, some multiple times. I think Empire Strikes Back, I probably saw the most. It's just we saw that thing at least 4 or 5 times. But
Attack of the Clones, I don't think I saw it until I got on DVD.
I keep forgetting that you're younger, man. So a lot of these things were, I grew up in the era of kind of like Stranger Things. Pre-digital, pre-internet. I mean, just so people know that when you watch the TV shows and movies and show kids on bikes and running around. And the only way you could really gossip or talk trash on people was in person. That's actually how it was. Like
That's why you're so good at it. So that's why you're so good at it when we get together, because you're like, oh, look, we're in person.
I'm used to going like, sometimes I didn't see a trailer for a film until it was on a TV spot on TV, or I saw it in the theaters. You didn't really, and don't get me wrong, I love that we have access to the stuff on the internet, but it was a little bit more raw. So you would get out of a movie and then you would go run to your friends in the neighborhood and you would talk, and you wouldn't always agree, but it allowed people to actually have conversations, where now we're yelling behind avatars and screen names and trash talking on Twitter.
When I was a kid, it was getting to the end of that, because I remember TV spots and shows like for The Matrix being on TV, right? And like Revolutions, Reloaded, I remember that. And then none of that whatsoever as soon as YouTube and that came around, And the thing that's always going to me is I hate looking at trailers. I absolutely despise it, especially nowadays, because I feel like trailers always show you a part of the ending of a film somewhere in the trailer. And I hate that. I really do. Even if you don't know that's the ending, I hate it.
Well, as a kid or maybe even a teenager, it goes right over your head. But as an adult, you try not to overanalyze, but you watch a trailer, and you're like, oh, crap, I think I figured out the ending when I wasn't trying to, because they showed too much. You know what I mean? But yeah, I know what you mean. I do. Yeah, so the original trilogy for me was kind of the era of you left the theaters, you went to your friends in the neighborhood. Like that whole thing with, Luke, I'm your father. You didn't know about that until you saw the film, or unless one of your friends opened their big mouth and said it. So it was a different time, but don't get me wrong. The old days had some good stuff. So does this digital era, the fact that we can do StreamYards and talk about stuff, and we're on different continents and or different countries, not continents, but you know what I'm saying? You're over in England, I'm in United States, and we can talk, and we have people that can come in here and chime in from everywhere. So don't get me wrong, while I miss a lot of the old days, what we have now is pretty amazing, and I don't take it for granted.
Well, for me, when I was a kid, I remember watching things like Harriet the Spy and Mulan and the Tarzan anime movie, and going to school, And I didn't have friends in school when I was really young, not really. So I'd sit there in the playground on my own, pretending I was Tarzan, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Trying to climb the tree and falling off. But the only time I got to do that really was if I saw like my cousin, who was like 8 months younger than me, and we would talk about it, because we used to go and see Harry Potter together when he came down from Milton Keynes, which was quite a while away, when he visited my grandma. So we went and saw the Harry Potters together, like the first 4 with her, and then she passed away, so we did see the rest of them in the cinema. But what I'm saying is, I didn't have that same kind of experience. For me, when I was younger, most of the time it was like, oh, you know what? My mum would be like, let's wait for it to come out on VHS. Let's wait for this. Let's. So yeah, I think if it had been more when you were younger, I would have been out more in that aspect, because I think you would have had that natural conversation topic. As when I was a kid, people always were a bit distant. They were a bit more, and I think that's because the start of mobile phones been more prominent and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I got my first, let me see, I'll be honest. My first computer, which was a hand-me-down from my brother, was 2000. My first cell phone was 2001. So I was a little bit late to the game, because computers had been around for a while at that point. But literally, I immediately found Ain't Cool News, thought that was the greatest thing ever, that there was this, and I only commented like one time. That whole feedback comment section was so
weird,
throwing jabs at each other over stuff. And literally, it was the early days was Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings, and Matrix. And I do remember, I don't know the context of how it was presented, but they showed Peter Jackson with some of the cast of, probably all 3 were shot back to back to back. And somebody, like one of the cast members says, this was going to be bigger than Star Wars. and the whole Star Wars community lost their shit. Ironically, it was bigger because Return of the King won like, I don't know, 7 or 8 Oscars and won Best Picture.
Yeah.
And
Had a
don't get
brilliant
me wrong.
cast.
And here's the ironic thing is the Hobbit prequel, whatever trilogy, kind of suffered the same thing as the Star Wars prequels, where
Yeah.
a lot of Peter Jackson did was a lot of special effects, and the movie did not even look real. So it's kind of like George Lucas Part 2 when he did the Hobbit films, because they look. I never even watched them because I saw the trailers in the theaters, and I was like, this looks like, I don't know, is it 12K, 16K? Everybody looked like wax figures. And
I bought them all for Donna because she was a big fan. She loved them, but I tried watching the first one and turned it off because it was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I need to go back and watch them. They're through Warner Brothers, so I could probably get it on streaming or something. I mean, maybe I'll like them, but I love that original Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, Return of the King, and these ones I was like, I felt like it was done. It was a great trilogy. Yeah. We didn't need to go back, and I felt like they were just milking a dead cow and making money, which they did. But Phantom Menace. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rank the Phantom Menace?
I'll give it 5 lightsabers. 5
lightsabers. I'm going to give it, out of 10 lightsabers, 2 lightsabers. The movie, I have to be honest. And look, what I'm saying is an opinion. What Malcolm is saying is opinion. We don't all have to agree. We could have been 2 people that came on here and hated it, or 2 people that loved it. That's what's great about, your ability to have an opinion.
Bene's been nice here. If you don't agree with us and we don't agree with you, too fucking bad, all right? That's how it is, People don't like things. It's fine. People like them, people don't.
And we've actually had a lot of people in the chat today. If you could like, share, and subscribe to our channel, it makes a huge difference. Trust me. YouTube is this just strange thing. And again, I will reiterate this. I'm not in it for money. I'm just here to have fun. I'm fairly new to this. I wanted to mix it up. I'm happy we're talking science fiction. We've talked comedies recently. We're going to continue to do that. And horror's not going anywhere. It's always going to be like the anchor of the channel. But I feel like this is kind of exciting because it's like with horror or any genre that you love, you watch it a lot, then you need to take a break. Not just in like YouTube videos, but just in my like home video collection. Sometimes I'll just stop watching horror for 2 weeks, watch some other things, and then I miss it. I need to miss it, right? Then it's like coming back home. I come back home.
You need to start watching stuff like this.
I can't see it. Oh, wait, I see some beautiful Asian girl. That looks like something Malcolm would watch.
It's called Man, Woman, and the Wall. Why does it do this?
You have to get rid of the green screen, or you're not going to see anything. God. Get rid of your fake ass background.
This is bullshit, isn't it?
There you go.
There we go. We watch more stuff like this.
Okay, so Saturday night I watched a Chinese torture story 1 and 2.
Oh, finally, we're going to hear what you've got to say about
it. 1 was better than 2, but I enjoyed them both. But the first film, first of all, I couldn't help but thinking about you watching these films because nothing but beautiful Asian actresses. And the first film, I've seen the clip before, like on a Giphy or something.
Yeah.
When there's a sex scene a la Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where people are flying in the air and going boom, boom. And I was like, this movie is bonkers, outrageous, cat 3, category 3 films that were, the first film it's torturous, but when it's not, it's a sex comedy.
Yeah.
I watched it going, this is a sex comedy. Even the trailer plays it straight. And I watched the trailer after I watched the film. This movie is hilarious. The guy with the big dong that flies around, and the sex in the air. I was like, what the hell what were these people smoking?
The bald guy and all the sex scenes with the woman.
Yeah.
His name is Elvis, and he's
Well-
in tons of Category 3
Well,
films.
Elvis is using his pelvis because, boy, that was but totally fun and just totally like the torture stuff happens and it's a little bit hard
It's
to
kind
watch.
of, it's not so bad when they're smacking her in the butt and in the back. You're like, it's acceptable.
Let me ask you this: is that somewhere in the culture, or did Takashi Miike copy it for Imprint? But I know Imprint was a book because there are scenes where fingernails get ripped off, and then also
That was real torture. That's real torture from back at the time.
Sharp instruments under the fingernail.
Yeah,
Were
like
both done in
bamboo sticks
Imprint.
and stuff used to be put under as torture.
So they were done in Imprint.
Yeah, it's real torture.
Okay, so that's part of the culture, which is why it was in that film as well as Imprint, which was based off a book. I thought it was like, did Miike copy that? I was like, no, because that wasn't an original story. But the movie's hilarious. 2 is not as good, but I did like the whole dynamic with the two guys that are, down in their luck, have to resort to stealing.
And then we Mark Chang's character.
Yeah, and the dude comes in and gets in between, them and their ladies. It didn't have the outrageousness and the craziness of the original, but
Best scene in that is the big paintbrush when she's licking it and all that. And she goes, "You stuck it in the wrong hole."
Yeah, that was rough, man. There were some scenes in there, but I totally enjoyed both of them.
I told you would.
Drop a link. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. But and then last night I did another double feature of Intrepido's Punks and Vengeance of the Punks, and those both were fucking cool too.
I haven't seen them yet.
Okay, I won't say too much then. You haven't seen them.
You can talk about them, just obviously don't go away too much.
I think I described in the unboxing video that like they were like post-apocalyptic. No, not even close. I should not comment on a film until I see them. They're just 80s punk rock dudes. They're like rebels. They go around their bikes and they rape, pillage, do whatever they want, and they kind of...
And then people seek revenge.
They march to their own beats. I don't want to say too much about the sequel because it kind of gives away what happens at the end of 1. But like the Chinese torture story films, lots of nudity, lots of beautiful women. Unfortunately, a couple of them, they're implants, so not as good as the Asian girls, but 2 outrageous double features that epitomize what's great about Vinegar Syndrome. All I have left of that subscriber month is Reptilicus on 4K. I'll watch that this weekend. But yeah, hey, 2 great double features. You're going to get the Intrepido's Punk song stuck in your head because they play
it
like
the Night Train the Terror one, right?
But it's a good song. And they play it every time they get on the road in their bikes, which is quite often. Intrepido's Punks, and they just play it, and now it's stuck in my head again.
Did you watch 8 Eyes yet?
I enjoyed it. A little bit because I'm a little biased because I do like Emily Sweet, but half of it, I didn't like it that much. But the second half, the story don't make a whole lot of sense, but the visuals, the last half of the movie kind of reminded me of the family dinner scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And I like how this went from Star Wars to your guys' fetish films. Well, the problem is we're kind of playing catch up, and this is how we roll around here, Sidious.
Right, keeps you watching afterwards, doesn't it?
And I got to admit, the actor that was naked in 8 Eyes. If you ever felt insecure about your guy, your tool downstairs, this guy will make you feel like Peter North because, oh my God, he's unattractive. Not that I want to see guys, but if you're going to see guys, right? This guy and his willy, woo, if you want to call it a willy,
it's terrible.
But no, I did enjoy.
The thing is, I like the first half of the movie, even though it's kind of slow. You get that atmosphere, right? And I like it. And I like that grindhouse kind of feel. You start off slow with these moments that are kind of getting there. But once it gets to the house with the guy with the tiny wiener and the other guy, You know, you just sit there going, what the hell's going on? And you're like, how can they think she's still asleep and all this stuff? And, you know, and it was entertaining. It's far from a bad film, right? But it does feel like it loses steam, kind of like at that point.
That kind of look in that country, this kind of Serbian film looking, it had that dirty, gritty, you know, yucky kind of feel. But I did like the second half. The movie doesn't make a lot of sense. I did kind of like the eye scene. It kind of looks like my glasses with my monitor. I end up looking like the girl in the Boogeyman, right? Where her one eye kind of lights up. I did like it. It kind of felt like Eurotrash by way of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just in the dinner table and the wacky family members and stuff. I'm glad I bought it. I enjoyed it more than you did. You know, I don't know if I'm going to pick up every, you know, original picture from Vinegar Syndrome, but I did enjoy
bought that one anyway, Family Suite anyway, didn't you? Because of the interview and that.
Yeah, the interview, I think I could have done better. Actually, I did do better. If you watch my video, and I'll put a link to it right here above my finger when I repost this. My interview with Emily Sweet, I think mine was just as good, if not better. It's I did watch the extras because as journalists or whatever you like, or even YouTubers, you're competitive. You watch what other people do, and just to kind of see where you fall in the big scheme of things. But and
you think you did better?
I think I did do better. If any boutique labels are out there, I'm all up for doing audio commentaries and interviews. I think I would be good at it. I think Malcolm would be good at it. I think we'd be great as a combo on an audio commentary for some films out there. I think because we know when to be serious, we know when to have fun. If I'm going to listen to two people yap for 90 minutes, if it's boring, I'm turning it off. You can have all the information in the world, but if you bore me to tears, I'm fucking not watching it. So
that's what the Fatal Games commentary was like. Bored.
Next Monday, we're going to be back. We're going to go look at. We already did our favorite horror films of the 90s. We're going to do our favorite horror films from the 2000s. So from 2000 to 2009, my 5 favorite films, Malcolm's 5 favorite films. I will say that one of our 5 are the same. We share one of them. Yeah, I won't say which one until next week, but one of our favorites, we share one, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
But again, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Darth Sidious, for being such an active.
Remember to tell people we're going to be later.
Yeah, I wish more people would have got involved, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with just viewing, but don't be shy. We'll never put you on blast or on the spot. If anything, we'll interact with your comments because I think that's something cool that people should do.
But we'll be here later next week, guys. An hour later, right?
It's going to be a little bit later next week. I will post probably the thumbnail for the live video probably the next day or two, just to get it out there so people can plan ahead of time. But thank you for joining us to talk about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We will be back next month with Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. And until then, take care, everybody.
Take care, guys.